so people, you don't mind? Are you
That's
okay?
fine. Thank you.
Thank you. So here we are. We are going to share a screen for a presentation that I have prepared to help us to go through this topic that is cooperatives for urban farmers and food retailers. This is part of a series of workshop that we are delivering on behalf of the Belfast City Council, Northern Ireland, support program. And they have a support program, and we are part of the team that delivers that support program here in Northern Ireland. And if you want more information about that program or register your interest for further support, you can view that information through those links on the screen. By the way, I will also share the presentation of today. What you get with this kind of program is mentoring and coaching, and maybe also some seed funding for the co-op registration if you are interested, you reach that level. Part of the resources that I will refer today are already on our website. There is a frequently asked question resources. There are webinars where you can meet local cooperatives just emerging in Northern Ireland, and local case studies. But today we were trying to make a bit, we went a bit around with the case studies. So we have a case studies based in England as well as here. Again, refer to the website if you want to know more. But this is a series of workshops that we have done in this last quarter of the year. We started with a big face-to-face event here in Belfast in October, the Young Cooperators Conference. But then we wanted to provide these kind of skills and training on how to set up cooperatives, what type of cooperatives are there. And we've done something about creative cooperatives. And today it's about co-ops for urban farmers and food retailers. We have a final workshop in December about the internal governance duties and responsibility for society directors, for cooperative directors. But that is coming in December. Today. So today will be very much about talking about cooperatives in a particular type of sector, urban farms and food production, food schemes. And we are trying to really pinpoint some of the advantages and also disadvantages, challenges of setting up a cooperative in this environment, in this sector. So we will have a bit of an introduction. We talk about the benefits of urban farming and food co-ops. We give some examples, and I hope the examples will help you to get your head around if you haven't yet thought what type of challenges or what type of opportunities you can take in building your idea. We can talk also a bit about structures because cooperatives offer you quite a lot of different structures for cooperatives in these sectors, for initiatives in these sectors. And then we will talk about challenges and opportunities. So let us to see who is in the room. If you wanted to say a few words about yourself and your organization, and what would you like to get out from today? Why did you join today?
Is it just me here?
Yeah, I think so in this moment, and maybe they will join later.
Okay. Yeah, so my name is Ayanfe, and I manage a urban farm in Detroit, Michigan. Um I have been a member of different co-ops in different cities where I live, a member owner, and a worker owner, in different situations in co-ops. But I'm interested in like the workings of like starting and the beginnings where you're gathering your people together and you're kind of like, getting on the same page and you're like, how do we do this? How do we create this structure? How do we make this an actual thing? So, yeah.
Okay. Okay, you have plenty of experience, if you don't mind me say so. So maybe some of the stuff that we are going to talk about will be very much known to you. But I hope that you can get something away from it, because we are not shying away to talk basics, including the things that can go wrong, the things that can go right. And most of the time, those things are very impactful when you start up a cooperative.
I'm
So
sorry, can you say your name?
my name is Tiziana O'Hara.
Tiziana?
Yeah, Tiziana O'Hara. And my
Okay.
organization is Cooperative Alternatives. We
Also one more question. Will I be able to get this
yes,
recording?
yes. Did you I don't see your name registered in the Eventbrite.
Okay, I can put my info in the chat box. I had saved it on my calendar because I was interested, and then when the alarm went off this morning, I went and registered at the last minute. So that might be why it's not in there.
Oh, okay, perfect, perfect. Yes, please do leave your email address so that we can send you the recording and the presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, so please do interrupt me at any time. Just to clarify, we are based in Northern Ireland. You know that.
Thank you. That's fine. I
Very,
just want information and
yeah,
having the recording will be great because I can just replay this with my group.
very good, very good. And, okay, I hope that it will be useful to you. But let us start then, and let's talk a bit about some terminology. So urban farm co-ops are farms that they are established in urban areas. So we refer to examples that they are very close or very into urban settings. They are run by a group of people as a cooperative, so they will have at their heart some democratic decision making or democratic governance. They share, of course, the responsibility of farming and work together to grow crops or raise animals. That's can be anything. And they promote, most of the urban farm co-ops, they promote sustainable agriculture, not intensive agriculture. Is a way to grow food or rear or look after animals or raise animal in a way that is sustainable. So think about the future of our resources as well as the present. And also, most of the farm co-ops the urban farm co-ops are born out of the desire to access fresh and healthy food that is not available or it's difficult to reach in urban setting. Often they operate a CSA model that stands for Community Supported Agricultural Model. In layman terms, is a veg box scheme. So where the membership or the community is accessing the fresh and healthy food by buying regularly, weekly or every 2 weeks, a veg box, a box that contains seasonal produce. That's urban farm. And food co-ops in general are community-based organization, again, or groups. They don't need to be constituted as an organization as such. And again, they provide fresh and healthy food. And usually they are very much run by a group of people who buys in bulk, purchase food in bulk, and then distribute it to its members. So they don't grow the food, but they are really keen to still provide healthy and accessible food but without growing it. So they buy possibly in bulk, a big quantity from other people, and then they distribute it to their members. They can still support a local farmer, providing all the advantages that the urban farms have, but in general, they are not growing it directly. Within that definition, if you want, there are also retail food co-ops where they run and manage a shop in which food is sold. So food co-ops most likely don't have a premises. A retail food co-op will have a shop and a premises. So just to clarify the terminology that we are going to use today. Of course, there is a lot of common benefits to urban farms and food shops in general. First of all, they promote and propose sustainable agriculture. So they reduce carbon footprint, they promote biodiversity, they may conserve in water, they're using regenerative practice in a way that the environment is left not as damaged as you would really have in a more traditional agricultural practice. So that is quite in common. So even in a shop that is run cooperatively, most likely the supplier to that job would be judged by how do you produce, how do you grow your vegetable and your fruit. And sustainable agricultural will be one of the criteria maybe that the shop will choose their own supplier. In general, provide access to fresh and healthy food, and that's it's very important, and in particular in areas, very, very urbanized area, which is difficult to find food that is fresh and healthy. And they also have maybe an attention to reduce food waste. But there are other benefits, there are social benefits that they are beyond the agricultural environmental benefits that we know. They foster community cohesion because for the actual structure that they have, they will bring people together around the common goal. They will kind of distribute and share their resources, their knowledge, their skills, creating training, learning opportunities, and definitely increase the education about food, about production among their members. And then they support the local communities by providing jobs. Some of the farms, the co-op farms, and also the retail shops that we see today provide jobs, promote economic development of a particular area, and have a good benefit for public health. In general, many of these initiatives will reduce food mile. That, what does it mean? It means that really reduce this distance between what the food, where the food is produced to where the food is consumed. So there is something like from farm to fork that is very much a sentence used by many of our initiatives that really really means to reduce carbon footprint. So I wanted to give you a bit of a flavor of example and case studies, and I'm sure that you have other case studies and other example in the areas near you, but just with some of the one that I wanted to propose to you, just to discuss that, some of them. We are based in Northern Ireland. We are part of the United Kingdom. So some of my examples will go over across the water to England. And this example organically is actually in London. It's a worker cooperative, so it's owned by the workers that grow the fruit and vegetable. It's a very interesting one, also because it has a long history. It's been established and started in 2001. And believe or not, it started with 1 acre in a very remote part and disused land very close to urban estates in London. The people around that land kind of clean up that disused land and started to grow fruit and veg. And they had this idea that if you share a day of work, you share also the harvest. So that was very much what they started with. If you were coming to volunteer and do some work around that field that was really abandoned, then it became very much a series of allotment. Then you could share also the harvest. Any surplus that all of them had then went into a market and they were selling that. And that was interesting because it started to provoke conversation about what else the small initiative at the beginning could become, with some support from some programs, but also because they had some very much interest from their own communities. They eventually set up as a formal workers cooperative, and you see in that picture some of their workers really meet up and deciding together. Being a workers cooperative allowed this organization to then kind of think a bit bigger and get and acquire bigger piece of land, to the point that now are really offering quite a lot of activities on what was originally just a growing group. And what they are offering is a training in organic practices, volunteering opportunity, and having acquired also some polytunnel and glass greenhouses, glass greenhouses, they are now selling plants. So the evolution of this initiative started from a very disused field that was cleared by a group of committed citizens into a very structured worker cooperative that share now the benefit among the workers, because they do get employment out of that, but also to the community at large. And they have diversified their own income practice. I wanted to talk about another type of urban farm that is being constituted differently. Jubilee Farm, it's here in Northern Ireland, it's just outside Larne, that is a smallish town in the north coast of this island. This initiative has been constituted from day one as a community benefit society. It started recently. You have, by the way, all the actual web links that you can do your own a bit more reading if you are interested. This initiative started in 2018. And very much was built around a group with religious goals. They wanted to get land in order to celebrate their own beliefs. But in order to purchase a piece of land, they had to constitute themselves in a way that their community became much more than the community, the religious community that initially they started with, and became very much a community, a geography community, and also a community of interest. So because they were one of the first one in Northern Ireland, they attracted from environmentalists to people living nearby, as well as their core community of people sharing their own beliefs. But by extending the concept of community, we're able to purchase 13 acres. So the membership was allowed this particular initiative to purchase 13 acres of land. And that meant raising shares from this type of community cooperative and use that amount of money to purchase the land. The land also had a building, and so the building became the farm manager land, the farm manager home. So there was in their plan was also to have somebody employed to look after the land. But now in this kind of second phase of growth of Jubilee Farm, their future plans are to transform that dwelling that has been the house of the farm manager for a while into a community center. And the reason is that they had, again, in order to survive, they had to diversify their own income. So they have now a particular type of activities around care farming, where they host refugees or asylum seekers to this country and offer them respite and days out, but also some farm work. They have also a club and a veg box. And the pig club, it's a kind of interesting one because it is operated in the same way that you would operate a veg box, when you pay in advance to share the risk of your meat parcel at the end of it, share the risk with the farmer. So these two schemes, the veg box and the pig club, are really an opportunity for the membership to support what they grow and what they rear. And then there is a third part of the actual activities that Jubilee Farm has developed in order to increase their capacity of increasing their income sources, is the conservation. So part of their land is not arable, so they cannot really reach, they cannot grow anything. So they have transformed this part. It's because it's very much down towards a river, so there is a kind of a degree, it's a big slope to go down. So they have created a conservation area for education purposes, for people coming and school children coming and observing nature, and tried to develop a sense for biodiversity and a sense also of what are the effects of humans into nature. It's an interesting piece of land that has been very well reused for conservation aims. So Jubilee Farm started with a desire for land from a small community, has increased the community in order to raise enough money to buy 13 acres. And now the community is a variety of members from different walks of life. And also from starting simply as a veg box and a pig club. That was the first income, income source that they had. They developed very much the care farming and the conservation as well. So starting a urban farm is difficult, but also sustaining an urban farm requires a constant adapting to what is the demand and the actual environment that you are given. Welcome to Emma, and sorry you are joining into the middle of the presentation, but just to let you know, Emma, we have a recording and you will receive also the actual presentation. So let us go a bit further. So these are two examples of urban farms, but let's talk also about food shops and run in a cooperative way. And again, I wanted to give you two examples, one across the water from us in Manchester, in England, and one here in Northern Ireland. I also want, well, let's go by step by step. So I wanted to talk about the Unicorn Grocery. So this is a grocery shop in the middle of Manchester. It's a worker cooperative, so it means that this shop is owned, run by the workers. And it started in 1994, so quite a long time ago. Again, it was born out of the desire to kind of combat the advancement of supermarkets food. They really had a passion for fresh and food and fresh and affordable food. So affordability was also very much at the heart of this workers' cooperative. They wanted to keep fresh food available and accessible for people that couldn't find very high price and couldn't find the food at affordable price. They have a very nice, interesting practice. In order to keep their competitive advantage with the bigger supermarkets, they adjust their price on a daily basis. They go around and check what is the price of the most popular items in the shop, and they compare and adjust them so that they can offer a bit of a less cost for their customers. They started in 1994, again, very much about organic food, fresh food, but also packaging. Packaging was very at the center of their thinking. They wanted to reduce the use of packaging across most of their products. So if you go and visit, and I would recommend you to do so if you are in Manchester, to that shop, you will see that some of the food like lentils, chickpeas, beans are in big barrels, and you can serve yourself. But it's an old scoop shop. But again, you can actually, by buying what you need, you also reduce the waste of food. So waste and packaging went hand to hand in their thinking. So it's a workers' cooperative very much driven by very specific values. Guys, I don't see any of, oh, very good. I don't see any of your messages until when I stop. But if you need a clarification or I don't explain something clearly enough, please stop me. So fruit and veg and the packaging were at the center of their thinking. But again, nothing stays still. And they had to continuously improve their profitability, but also the answer to the demands to their customer and their members. And that is when they started to really think about a daily shop. of course, a daily shop is when you prepare food on the go. So they have sandwiches, soups, salads that people can come in at lunchtime or towards the end of the day and get what they need, just already prepared. The daily shop also really answered the need of reducing waste into the shop. So there been quite a lot of thinking about what they were throwing away, what could actually be reused in soups and in salads. Interestingly, this worker co-op did go through a different growth of the business, and for doing so, they needed money or funds to implement some of the changes. And they use a method called loan stock, where they ask their customers to support their fundraising efforts by lending money. So we will see the next example. They ask the community to support their funding with by shares, but this workers cooperative actually ask loans, small loans from their customers that had a particular terms, not particular demanding terms, and a very, very small interest, but allow them to avoid the usual, bank loan that would have been more stricter and it would have been a bit more demanding on their finance. So loan stock is what they used as a means, as a tool to raise funds from their customers. So let us, and this is one method, but I will definitely suggest that you visit this one if you are around Manchester. Instead, if you are in Northern Ireland, then I would say do not miss the Carrick Greengrocers. It's a very, very recent greengrocer. It's again a cooperative structure and is a shop, practically a shop in the middle of a place called Carrick Fergus, that is a small village a few miles away from Belfast, but a village that historically has neglected their own city center. And it's a beautiful place because it has also a castle, and so it could become a bit more of a tourist attraction. But in the past few years, well, given COVID, of course, and the current economic situation or economic climate, a lot of retail shops in the city center closed. So it was a kind of very counterintuitive, if you wanted to put it in that way, that this group of citizens decide to open a shop in a kind of a city center that was going really derelict. But that was exactly the desire of this initial conversation, that is this group of people. You can see the photograph of them in on the slides, started practically 2 years ago. 2 years ago, they started to meet and they say, how can we make a Carrick Fergus better? And the idea of the shop came. So this was really a mix between making your town better with access food that is fresh and healthy. So the vision that this group had was a mix between the two. And all those members had their own idea, but they all gathered together around one particular goal: make it happen, make something happen in the city center, that people would bring, that would bring people back to the city center. So they were looking for a shop that was strategically placed in one or two of those historical main streets that Carrickfergus have. But also, it was very much about let us engage as many people as possible, because this is it's our goal to make the city center more accessible for people and make them come down to shop and work with us. So their intention to raise money was more motivated by raising the commitment of people, raising the number of their members. In fact, if you look at the money raised, it's quite modest. It was only £34,000, really, but they raised it from 434 members. And that is the biggest achievement of Carrickfergus to date, as well as running the shop. With that money, they were able to buy the first stock for the furniture of the shop, although they had quite a lot of donations, really. And because the initiative gathered so much interest, and because they were able to engage the 434 members so well, through public meetings, social media, of course, television. They appear also on the news, the 6 o'clock news, the regional 6 o'clock news. So in that respect, the money was, yes, part of their business initial need, but really not the motivation for engaging as many people as possible, because their goals had two aspects: bringing people back to the city center and offer them food that is healthy and fresh. So they are a greengrocer. It's definitely a greengrocer. They are actually connecting with the local suppliers, a local producer. If you go inside their shop now, you will see marmalades, jams, chutneys, all produced locally. You also will find the bread 1 day per week available to you. So in that respect, it's a shop. It's run as a shop, but had the impact, a much bigger impact. And the reason is because they chose also a community benefit society structure that allowed them to create a cooperative that has not only the workers as member, but the community at large. It's interesting. Final example. I wanted to give you also an example of one food co-op that didn't succeed. It breaks my heart, but we needed to talk also about our failures if we needed to learn how to create food cooperatives and urban farms that are long-term sustainable in this region. So I wanted to talk briefly about the Belfast Food Co-op. So this was an aspiring consumer co-op and is no longer in existence. It operated between 2020 and 2022. As you can imagine, those were very difficult years. It was COVID, and of course, it was really challenging to really make this initiative as kind of as successful as we could have, but was not the only reason. This initiative was working towards the 2020 opening for a few years, and actually they had a very strong bulk buying group behind it. These people were a very loose group of people that very regularly bought organic food from a local supplier. And they did that for their own personal reason, and they were operating the buying group in a voluntary on a voluntary capacity. But at one stage, they decided to transition the bulk buying group to a shop. And this is when they started to think about a cooperative structure. A cooperative that, in their view, should have been owned not by the workers, because they still wanted to do voluntary work. They wanted to be owned by the people buying the food, the consumer. So what were the challenging factor that brought this consumer cooperative to close down eventually? They were not able to secure premises, and that very much was connected to COVID. They had the different premises and they changed different venues, but in these premises they couldn't really stay temporary. Permanently. It was always a temporary solution. So they were not able to develop a relationship with or the money to pay for an agreement that was a longer term. They always had storage issues because the bulk buying group really had a sizable bulk of food or of items like toilet rolls. They were buying organic toilet rolls. They were buying big bulks of tins, a can of soup or can of chickpeas. So there was really a big issue about storage, and none of the premises was apparently offered them enough space to develop that. But most of all, so those were very, very specific practical disadvantages that they had. But most of all, internally, there was a lack of a unifying strategy to move forward. So among the members of the original buying group and the members of that original group became also the directors of the cooperative, there was no agreement on what we want to achieve and how do we want to achieve. And that is one of the lessons that in a cooperative we need to bear in mind, that because a cooperative is made of people, we need to create good conversation in which we decide unifying, we decide together where we wanted to go. If we started to have different visions or different kind of approaches, then it become more difficult to implement that at business level. And that's not to say that we shouldn't have different opinions. Absolutely not. We in a cooperatives we should be always have our own opinion, but we should also develop the skills of cooperation in which those opinions can reach a compromise. And I think that was the breaking point when that compromise and cooperation was not there practically. And I hope this brings some kind of okay, I don't want it to be sad about it, but some kind of insight of what happened in this particular case. Okay, before I go further, do we have any? Oh my God! Look at the sun is coming. Sorry, the sun is coming. You didn't see me. Do you have any questions on the examples? Anything that has given you some food for thought? No. Do you want to be okay, Emma?
Hi, yeah, no, I've been frantically taking notes because I'm gonna learn more about the existing and the Belfast Food Co-op and about the failure. It's just a shame, that
Yeah.
unfortunately they didn't have their own premises. I think that's a really good point to just keep in mind, and how maybe you can find premises, or maybe we'll work with
Yeah.
councils or something like that,
That's very, very good. They try different ways of securing premises. Of course, there is the private market. You can go and lease a premises anywhere, but you needed to have quite a lot of money to secure maybe a deposit. And then you are signing up for an agreement that maybe brings quite a few liability. The agreement or the lease needs to be at least for 1 year or 3 years. And there is no security. So they chose, so that was always an opportunity for them, but they couldn't afford the lease. So they worked in collaboration with other organizations like charities or social enterprises, and they secure some space within this organization. So for a while, they were sharing a church hall. And that really closed down when the church hall changed their own function, and they couldn't accommodate them anymore. Also, it was quite restrictive because the church hall didn't allow them to use it every day. It was only on set days. But they work with that because for a while, if you were buying something through the Belfast Food Co-op, you were going and collect your stuff on that set day, for instance. Then they try also the delivery type with the volunteers, deliver the goods to the people that bought it through volunteers. Well, of course, volunteers, it's quite demanding job to do on a voluntary capacity. And then it can cost a lot of money to run that. And the volunteers were kind of, you can do it for a while, but then your petrol or even your time is not rewarded. You can't do for forever. Then they changed and they went to a social enterprise, and that was interesting because again they secure a part of a premises, but what was difficult for them was the storage. They had only cupboard. And every time that they were there on the premises, they were opening the cupboard, take everything out. People was coming in. There was a good buzz at the beginning, and then everything had to go back to the cupboard. And nothing was there on view. And for them, that was difficult as well. Also, the location of that social enterprise was a bit outside the city center, if you consider Belfast, where you would maybe benefit a bit more from other part of Belfast coming in the city center rather than coming outside. So location of the premises, the storage, relationship were all part of the mix. But premises is a big issue. It's a big issue. But are you looking for premises?
No, it was really just to learn more about.
Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Premises are very important. In particular, if you want to do a shop, what is your model? Do you want it to be there available? One of the most successful part of Carrickfergus was to secure a premise in the city center.
And how did they
A lease,
they
a
work
commercial
with?
lease, a commercial lease. But they negotiated. They negotiated very much. I mean, there were people that were not taking no for an answer, and they were really, trying to say, we are doing this for the good of the city. Our aim is not really to make money in the sense that we want to be profitable because we want to be sustainable, but it's really to create a more footfall for all the other business as well.
Yeah.
So they went to the Chamber of Commerce, they did a lot of lobbying. Then at the end of the day, they signed a lease on commercial terms. But again, they were able to put out there the good story.
Yeah.
And in this moment, given the footfall they have in their own greengrocer, they are able to, they can afford that lease very well. And
No,
also, after the first week of trading, there is an hairdresser nearby. I tell you this story. The hairdresser bought a champagne bottle and bought it to them and say, I never had so many customers as they, because I don't know, Emma, are you in Northern Ireland?
I am in Belfast, yeah.
Very good. Carrie Fergus. It's a beautiful town, but again, it's not very well known, and is going down because the retailing sector, like Belfast, the retailing sector is closing down. But anyway, it's a very good story. So yes, they were not afraid to tell the good story. They were not afraid to negotiate, and they did negotiate some better terms, maybe that the state agents wanted to. And they chose a location that was very visible, very visible in the city center. So that's part of their success story.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah. Okay. So let us talk a bit more about cooperative structures so that you'll have a flavor after today. We have another, are you okay with the time, guys? Because this was between 12 and 2, but to give you a bit of a flavor of, as you can see from the examples, you have an enormous amount of variety of structure, even in cooperatives, to choose from. So let us, because the cooperatives, at the end of the day, they are not defined by a legal structure in particular. It's not defined by how you set up the legal entity. It's defined by this definition. And this definition is preserved by the International Cooperative Alliance, that is an international organization that has put together this definition in 1995, is now shared globally by any cooperative in the world, with a set of values and a set of principles that goes with this definition. So let us read this definition very quickly. So what is a cooperative? If somebody asks you, what is a cooperative? Well, it's an independent association of people, united voluntarily to meet their common economic, social, and cultural needs and aspirations through what? Through a jointly owned and democratically controlled enterprise. So here there is so many to talk about, but let us unpack two things. A jointly owned. It means that in your cooperative, your members, no matter what type of members you have, are jointly owning the enterprise. But they jointly own and democratically control the enterprise. It means that your members have an equal voice, so that all members are kind of able to participate in the decision making, in the decision that you're taking about your enterprise, but without being constrained by what you have contributed to the enterprise, because it's one member, one vote, and not what you would have in ordinary business like companies where you have one share, one vote. Think about the ordinary businesses where you have the more shares you own or hold in a business, the bigger is your voice. In a cooperative, they doesn't really matter how much you shop in the shop, how much you have invested in that shop, how much you have given to buy that land in Jubilee. Everybody is the same. One member, one vote. And everybody owns that enterprise. So that's a very interesting concept that differentiated, interesting definition that differentiate what is a cooperative from a company. And again, this is shared everywhere. But on top of that, the cooperative identity is made by the definition that we just read and 7 principles. Again, why these principles are important? Because these principles are really embedded in all aspects of a cooperative, including the governing documents, like a constitution or an article of association or rules. They need to embed these principles. So the principles are that voluntary and open membership, that you cannot discriminate. What does it mean that you cannot discriminate on who is coming and become a member of your cooperative? And discrimination is based on the usual definition of, and you cannot discriminate on based on gender, religions, political affiliation. Number 2, you have to have a democratic member control, and that is very much about that one member, one vote, that you are ensuring for each member the capacity to express their opinion without connecting that to their investment or their capacity of buying things. So it's a very much equality and equity among the members that decide what the direction of the cooperative. Member economic participation. In a shop or in a farm is very much about what we were talking. Members are eventually the customers of the shop. In the members, the 400 plus members in Carrickfergus, they became the customers. So there is that economic participation. And in a more established cooperative, not the ones that we were talking today, but maybe more established cooperative, there is a kind of return to the members. If you are familiar with the cooperative group, was a very, very common practice. The cooperative group has cooperative shops around the UK to share their profit in terms of dividends. So the customers who were shopping, the more they were shopping, at the end of the year, they would receive something back in the form of dividends. Sometimes the distribution of profit can be through dividends, sometimes could be through an interest on the shareholding. Sometimes there is no distribution of profit, but some of the profit will go to a community fund that will help other initiatives at discretion of the cooperative. So for instance, Jubilee will have a community fund one stage that would support initiatives that they will decide how to promote. Most likely would be about other similar farming, community farming. So member economic participation is one principle. Principle number 4 is autonomy and independence. These are legal entities. So cooperatives are businesses, but also set up as legal entities, and as such, they are independent and autonomous. But also they are independent and autonomous because the scope, the intention of a cooperative is to be long-term sustainable and therefore being profitable. And it doesn't really, it's not the best structure that you can use to be dependent on grants, for instance. So autonomy and independence are very much at the fore of what if you are deciding of setting up a cooperative, then it's what you need to really bear in mind. And then the last three principles are very much about your relationship with your members and with the community in general. Cooperatives are very much about educating, training, and keeping the information flowing among the membership, being very transparent and fair in their decision making. Also, they are trying to build up a cooperation among cooperatives, so that there is some level of solidarity between the different cooperatives. Finally, concern for the community, that's very important, as we talked about the community fund that most likely Jubilee is going to set up. That is another important principle. Cooperatives are, yes, very much interested in the well-being and in the economic development of their own membership, but at the end of the day, they are not always looking inwards. They also look outwards, because their concern for the community should be always there and be expressed in some sort of way. So the 7 principles are very much about values and the way the cooperative will be run, but they are also embedded in the governing documents and in the decision making of the cooperative. At least, you know, it's difficult to sometime to implement all these principles, but the aspiration has to be there. And also would be the principle that will maybe your membership will judge the performance of your cooperatives. We have now ways to really measure how well a cooperative is doing in embedding and implementing these principles. And this is reported maybe at an annual general meeting. It's interesting. So just to go a bit more general, so why a cooperative? What is the cooperative advantage? Well, we know that the cooperative is owned by the members. We learned that. We know that we have a principle. One of the major principles is one member, one vote. We know that the profit can be shared equitably through dividends or interest. We also know that the profit can be recirculated within members and community if we have a community fund. So these are very much the characteristics of a cooperative, but also the advantages are the risks are shared. So if I have a group of members, a group of people that is working on an idea, on an enterprise, then those people are sharing the risks, are also sharing the skills that group of people have. And we have seen, for instance, in Carrie Ferguson, that they were able to negotiate maybe the lease because one of the members that you saw in that photograph had quite a good understanding of what a lease was. And then they share the cost. So if the cooperative needs to share some initial cost, we saw that there are some mechanism there to raise a fund or amount of money, a capital, that then can help to cope with startup cost. We saw community shares in Jubilee, but we in Carrie Fergus, but we also saw Lawn Stock and Unicorn. 2 methods to share practically the cost with your membership. Cooperatives are also trusted. They have this kind of identity that trust them to the public. And cooperatives are more resilient. Why do I make such a big claim? Because we saw that cooperatives, even in moments of difficulties, they put people before the profit. So in that respect, they may readjust their kind of business goals in order to keep people on, for instance. So there are different types of cooperatives. I hope that today, through the examples, you saw worker cooperative like Unicorn and Organically. Then you could saw an example of consumer cooperative. We definitely saw community cooperatives, also called the Bancom, just to get some of the lingo. And then we have also multi-stakeholder cooperative. Let us give an overview again of what is available. So you have workers cooperative, Unicorn, we talked about that. Consumer cooperative, we talked about the Belfast Food Cooperative as a failing example of a food co-op, but an exciting and a successful example is the Dublin Food Co-op that you guys can also visit if you go to Dublin. And it's a consumer cooperative. It's been going for a few couple of decades now, and it's based near the Kilmaine prison. Yeah, in front of that they have new premises. So the Dublin Food Co-op, it's a good example of consumer co-op. Community co-op, we talked about Carrick Greengrocer. What we haven't talked about, and I wanted to briefly touch, is a multi-stakeholder cooperative. And we have an example in Northern Ireland, is the Lacada Brewery Cooperative. They are based in Portrush on the north coast of this island. And they are a brewery. Practically, they are they produce their own artisan beer, and they are selling it to the public. Why they are a multi-stakeholders? Because their membership is a mix between the workers, the consumers, and the people that invested the money in to buy the initial equipment. So you can see that structure are many. So just to really summarize a bit, this table you can actually read it and maybe digest it with the time. So types of cooperatives, worker cooperative, who are the members? The workers are the member. And what is the most common reason to set up a worker cooperative? Because they want to provide employment to themselves. We have plenty of workers cooperative in many other sectors. Today we talk about the food. Unicorn is an example for you. Consumer cooperative. So the members are the consumer or the user of the service, and they provide goods or services to their own member. Multi-stakeholder. They have a mixed of a membership. It can be workers, it can be consumers, it can be investors, it can be even suppliers. And the reason is, again, to provide goods and or services to their member and not members. Even the consumer cooperative, sorry, I said members, but could be non-members. Community cooperative. The members are anybody that fit in the definition that they put, plus the community at large, seen as a community of interest or geographical. So they very much address a community needs, and they provide services. A consortium is also another type of cooperative that a lot of people, remember, in particular from a farming background. And a consortium may be a combination between producer, farmers, producer and farmers in one category. And it can be a consortium of doctors, You know, some of the service that out of our service are consortia of doctors that take that out of hours service and manage that and provide service. Just to, this is just a little table, of course. Final couple of slides. Challenges. So what are the challenges for urban farm co-ops and food co-ops? I divided them into external and internal. External, it can be funding. It can be funding, you know, where do I find the money at the beginning? Marketing, it can be very much, I don't know where is my market. I haven't really thought clearly about what products the people really want or need. Community engagement can be challenging. You need to be very much on top of all your kind of communication, but also it's more than that. It's about making it very meaningful so that members do feel in accordance to the 7 principles that they can participate and contribute to the cooperative itself. In the particular case of urban farms was land access. We didn't talk very much about land issues, but premises issues is similar. But land is a big issue for our particular region. Regulations may be a difficulty. And when I'm talking about regulations, running a cooperative needs to be run in accordance to the law, and that capacity needs to be sometimes built across the steering group that have started the cooperative, because maybe they don't have a particular appreciation for health and safety or HR particular regulation. So there is a level of education and learning that some cooperative have to make. And these regulations are important and needs to be kind of abide by. Competition, in particular for food shop cooperatives, competition of supermarkets, it's quite big, as well as for urban farms where intensive farming really produce very low quality products, but an enormous quantity of them, keeping price down. So competition, it's a big challenge. Internal challenges as well are the lack of common goals. We talked about some example of that. The wrong people at the wrong time in the wrong place. We all know that. We've been some of those people as well. We've seen that the inability to overcome a conflictual situation can be really a challenge. So it's not, again, I reemphasize, it's not the fact that there are conflicts that it's a problem. The problem is that we don't overcome them. And sometimes there is a failure to engage members in the community. Not very much at the beginning, I have to say, that's not our experience, but it's after a while. So you need to keep the interest going, and that's hard, it's hard work. And engage the members, you know, meaningfully. So it's not maybe at the beginning where there is the euphoria of starting something, but let's see in a year time, how do we keep that commitment up and running. But I don't want to leave you with the challenges. I want also to talk about opportunities, in particular in this region. Why do we have opportunities now? Because through urban farms, co-ops, and food co-ops, we meeting the challenges of climate change, for sure. They are mostly sustainable agriculture. They mostly sustain sustainable agricultural practices like regenerative practices. And those are very much well documented as challenging the climate change. They provide economic opportunity. They create jobs. They create jobs. They create jobs in your community. They create even a possibility for acquiring skills that maybe move you on into other jobs. So economic opportunities are very important. They build resilient communities. We saw examples of cooperatives that brought that kind of impact in their own geographical area, but also in the community of interest that build that resilience among communities. And then they bring a different type of community engagement that has to be meaningful. And I'm using that word meaningful because very much is regulated by the 7 principles. So it needs to be very much value driven and participatory and very much contributing to something that changes society or the system in our societies. So those are the opportunity that, what are the support available? Of course, our organization, it's Co-operative Alternatives. You have a website with the resource, webinars, and case studies. We talk about that at the beginning, but you also have the Belfast City Council Support Program. There is a slide in at the beginning. Emma, sorry that you missed it, but there are all the links on that slide. If you are interested, you can actually go and look at the page in the Belfast City Council. They have a support program for social enterprises and the cooperatives, so you can apply to that. And they will provide mentoring and coaching for your idea. So, and also some seed funding, because in some situation, the registration of cooperatives can be more expensive than a ordinary company. So we can help you with that. We also have a program across Northern Ireland that is supported by Cooperatives UK. It's a national program. And we run also a program about community farming in rural NI, but we are at the end of that. So keep in touch, keep an eye on what we can offer. If you have a cooperative idea, it doesn't cost us nothing, to come and have a cup of coffee with you, or a phone call, or a Zoom meeting, just to discuss what you can do. And we bring this one to a close, if you don't mind.
Thank you so much.
It's only me and you, Emma. So would you like to leave maybe a bit of an evaluation in your mind of what we did right, what we did wrong, if you don't mind?
No,
it would be useful for us.
Yeah, to me, it's something that I know absolutely nothing about and have been trying to get to grips with. So that's been a really helpful introduction in terms of enabling me to go away with loads of information and visit some of these existing co-ops and the carrot greengrocers and learn more about it. So, and then having your contact information as well is so helpful, because if I have any further queries, I'll come back to you. But really, really helpful introduction, and has left me with plenty of resource to be able to go out and find more and come back to you.
Absolutely. And as we say, it can be a very long journey sometimes, and there are little challenges, but it's not impossible, Emma. We've done it. There are a lot of people that have done it, and there is a lot of people that is willing to help.
Yeah, amazing, because I think it's something that would love to see so much more. I used to live in England, and it was so common, and it would be great to bring it more to Northern Ireland and to Belfast. So thank you so much.
No problem, Emma, and thank you. And keep in touch.
I will.
Let us know how it's going. If this is the first step, there are a few other steps, and if you get stuck, come back.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, have a great day.
You too.
Bye
Bye now.
Bye.